on Mother Kelly's doorstep, down Paradise Road.
Hello everyone, I've come to find the final resting place of Danny LaRue, and I'm at St Mary's Roman Catholic Church in London, and this is where he is. So we shall have a good wander and we'll find him. Danny got introduced to show business whilst being in the Navy. He was doing the sort of concert routine for the troops, and they did all these drag acts, and of course he got into that. And a lot of the guys that did the drag acts, when they left the war, when they left the Navy, they wanted to carry on. So there was quite a glut of sort of female impersonators, and of course Danny LaRue was one of them. But he went on to be, I would say, he went on to be the most successful one for sure. He met a promoter called Danny Carroll, and this guy was the one that was responsible for pushing him into stardom. The thing with Danny was that when he was doing his act, he didn't want to be thought of as a man trying to be a woman. He wanted to be a drag act. And if you watch the act, that's why he always puts in a section during the filming where he has a deep voice. And he does that, you know, to show you that he's a man. It was all double entendre and suggestive stuff, you know. There was nothing really dirty. It was a good act, and he was very good at it. I wouldn't say it was the British Liberace. He wasn't. He was his own man. And yeah, he was very good on stage. Very talented man. He always made a point of, whenever he did his act, he would always come back on the stage at the end as a man, as himself. He did not want to be thought of as a man trying to be a woman. That hence the bit with the deep voice again, you know. He wanted to make sure everybody realised he was his partner and would often be with him at the parties. So it was well known to everybody that he was a couple with this guy, but of course he kept it quiet as regards to the rest of the world, you know. Jack Hansen, they made the perfect pair because Jack Hansen looked after him business-wise, and Danny did all the theatrical stuff. So it was a perfect team, perfect partnership really. They worked well together. In 1964, he bought his own club, the Danny LaRue Club, and it was an enormous success. The club used to have partners to all the celebrities. Liza Minnelli, Nureyev, the ballet dancer, you name it, these people went to his club. It was very, very popular. It was a very good club. In fact, most nights it was completely full. Princess Margaret was a big fan of his. They were very close. He used to get invited to her house, and one night he said to her, because he was close to her, "Margaret, you're drinking too much." She slapped him round the face. Danny LaRue started to walk out of the room. Then he came back and he slapped her back. She couldn't believe it, and he just walked off. Believe it or not, Princess Margaret returned a few weeks later to his club and said, "Danny, I'm sorry, am I forgiven?" That shows you how much he was regarded by these people. One of the things that he used to do when he had his female costume on, he used to tuck his equipment away, shall I say, and you couldn't see it. And 70% of the audience were women. And of course he used to lift his skirt up and there was nothing there. And he used to make this joke, when I whistle, it disappears. People who saw his act used to say that it was so funny. They had a little joke because, as I say, 70% of the audience were women. And when he was doing his act, the women used to wee themselves. And they used to have to come out when the act was over with hairdryers to dry the seats. And Danny would say, "Yep, the hairdryers have come out again." That shows you how good the act was, doesn't it? He used to come on the stage at 1:45, and he should really be off at 2. And quite often he was still there at 1:45 or 3 o'clock. He was a man who really knew how to spend his money. He bought lots of the trappings of life, you know, nice houses, nice cars. But he bought a property called Walton Hall, and that really started the disaster that struck him in his 50s, because Walton Hall needed a lot of attention and he wasn't there enough. So he ended up trying to sell it. And 2 Canadian businessmen came along and they said to Danny, "Why don't we go into a partnership together? We'll run the hall together." So he didn't really know anything about the background, and for once his partner didn't look into it, and he signed up, and it ended up there were 2 con men. They just ran an enormous bill up for everything, for possessions and things they bought. They just run this enormous bill up, and it ended up with Danny LaRue bankrupt. He had to sell the hall, sell his houses, sell his cars, And here he is in his 50s when he should be thinking of retiring, and he's now in a really, well, he's bankrupt. He was very fair though. He did not want the debt round his neck, and he decided he would work his way out of it. He said, they can take my money, but they can't take my talent. And he was determined to carry on working and pay back all that was owed. In 1984, he owed £1 million in debt. So he was working and working and working, and he decided to do Hello Dolly. For once it got panned. The fact that it was completely in drag all the time, doing the leading role, the critics just hammered it. And yeah, unfortunately that really went down badly. He got very depressed, he started drinking more. It said that one night he drank 2 bottles of whiskey on the trot. It could have killed him. You know, just in a very bad state at this point. I mean, his life had been so good and now it was so bad. Ronnie Corbett said he should have been at that stage in life at a point where he could hang his brow up. Poor Danny. He was a noble man because he was trying to work his way back out of all this, and he never really did. To the end of his life, he never really. And then disaster struck again because his partner, he had a heart attack and died. So life was really very difficult for him, but he never let people know that, not unless they really knew him. He carried on working, he did his best, and you've got to admire the guy for it, you know. He had guts, he had determination. He was a really star performer, so, you know, all credit to him really. He had a dog called Jaunty and he loved the dog. And one day he took it to one of the venues and they said, "I'm sorry, Mr. LaRue, you can't bring your dog in backstage." And he said, "No dog, no Danny." Simple as that. Annie Galbraith was his costume designer. They were really close and she looked after him. And when he was unwell after the stroke and life had sort of taken the life out of him really, she offered him a roof and he went to live with her. They were very close. And when he sadly died, he put in his will that he wanted all the costumes that he'd worn on stage to be auctioned at the last place that he'd performed, which was the Brick Lane Theatre. And they did, they auctioned them all. It was a great success, produced a lot of money, and it all went to Annie. Wasn't that sweet of him to do that? A lovely thing at the end. So he tried to pay her back basically, didn't he? Lovely. He also toured in New Zealand and Australia because he was very popular there. You know, it wasn't just Britain. So he was a class act, he really was. Born Daniel Patrick Carroll in Cork City, Ireland in 1927, Danny LaRue was the youngest of 5 siblings. The family moved to England when he was 6 and he was brought up in Earnshaw Street in Soho, central London. When the family home was destroyed during the Blitz, his mother, a seamstress, moved the children away to Kempford in Devon. There weren't enough girls, so I got picked for the roles, he said. He served in the Royal Navy as a young man, following in his father's footsteps, and for a while worked in delivering groceries. He became known as the female impersonator, or a comic in a frock. He was appointed an OBE in 2002's Queen Birthdays Honours List. LaRue later stated that in an interview this was the proudest day of his life. Other accolades included a Royal Variety Performance appearance in 1969, 1972 and 1978, Variety Club of Great Britain Showbiz Personality of the Year 1969, Theatre Personality of the Year 1970, Entertainer of the Decade 1979, and the Brinsworth Award from the EABF for his outstanding contributions to entertainment profession and the community. In 1987 he was given King Rat of the Showbiz charity, the Grand Order of the Water Rats. LaRue suffered a stroke in January 2006 while in Spain on holiday. He had several further strokes and developed throat cancer. He died shortly before midnight on the 31st of May 2009 at the age of 81. Yeah, I've seen it, fantastic. Here we are. As I say, it's not elaborate, but it's lovely. Here we go. I'll spin you around so you can see it. There we go. That's his partner at the top. Jack Hansen, 1921 to 1984. Treasured memories of a dear friend. Until we meet again, Dan. Daniel Patrick Carroll, OBE. Danny LaRue. 1927 to 2009. And there's 2 stars either side because he was a star. Thank you, Danny. You were a fantastic performer, a true star. Comedian, entertainer, singer and character. Fantastic. This is the location, look. A little bit noisy there with the building works and the grass cutter, but they're always there. Thank you, Danny. What a star he was. He was one of the biggest stars in the 60s. His club was sold out all the time. You couldn't get in. It was that busy. Yeah, true entertainer. A diva. If he didn't get the treatment he thought he should do, he used to have a bit of a tantrum. But so he should, he was a star, you know. If you're a star, act like a star. Yeah, what a great one. So don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell so you don't miss the future films. Thumbs up and a comment would be great because I love the comments. We've got a great channel now. I love just logging in every night and seeing who's there and what they've got to say, and the things that you learn, it's amazing. People know things that you would never have guessed because, you know, there's so many of them. And I recognise you all now. There's certain names that I'm sticking in my mind. And it's our channel, not just my channel, remember that. We're all part of it together. It's lovely to meet you all. So from today, Alan at MotorHome Beep Beep, I'm going to say bye-bye. See you all again very soon. Take care. Bye.